We
This is
do the
what I
dance.
do.
We do the
And
dance.
I dance and I dance and I wait for. There it is. All right.
There it is.
There
We
it is. Oh, the fun technology of doing live streams and podcasts and doing it in real time. We do our best. So, welcome to another Soul Connection call. I'm Safrianna Luna, and I am joined here today by Alicia Sweezer. So glad to have you with me. And I'm just going to blab for a moment to remind people, because it's been a little bit, about what these soul connections are. These are meant to be authentic, open, just fun conversations about a topic we've agreed upon. And I am so excited because Alicia Sweezer has the incredible gift of everything. And Alicia, if everything has gone well on my side, things should be up on your page too.
Yeah.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
No.
I'm going to go look. So, in the meantime, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I'm just so excited to be here. And my name is Alicia Sweezer. My business is Who Knew Healing, and I'm an intuitive life coach, mentor, energy healer, animal communicator, and medium. And since we're talking about animal communication today, which I'm super excited about, I was actually born with my gifts to be able to talk to animals, but I didn't always know it. Like I was one of those kids that was always outside, always played with stuffed animals, was always just really good with animals. I didn't know that I was psychically talking to them. And I always wanted to be a wildlife biologist, which I was able to do. And I actually thought psychically talking to animals was a wildlife biologist trait. Like I thought all wildlife biologists talk to
I
animals
love that.
because you're born that way. And it's like, this is your dream. And you're like, I was very far along in my career. And I was actually out in the field with happened to be a group of men at the time. And I was like, y'all don't talk to the animals that we just tagged? And they were like, no. And I was like, all right. So I'm going to go hang over here with the trees.
Oh my gosh.
So yes, it was quite it's just like when you're born some way, you don't know that it's any different.
Right.
And so yeah, that's my story.
I
That's
love this story, and I love that, like, you went into a traditional career, right? You went into a traditional career that complemented the gifts that you didn't, like, consciously know, right?
mhm,
Were a thing that people could or couldn't have.
yeah.
And yet you managed to get into a niche where you were probably very much able to flourish in the core of what you wanted to be doing, which was working with the animals.
Very much so. It was one of those like I always had a picture in my head what I wanted to be doing.
Hmm.
And then when I walked into my seventh grade life science class, on the cover of our book was a woman hanging off the side of a cliff at an eagle's nest studying the effects of DDT on the eggs. And I was like, this is a picture of what I want to do. So it was called life scientist back then, but it was later a wildlife biologist. And so I was like, I finally had the actual picture to match what was in my head. And so, I went to college and did all the things. And I was so fortunate. And, it's one of those places we talk about how you unconsciously or subconsciously manifest
Hmm.
things because I always wanted to work with threatened and endangered species. And I had even said to one of the grad students in one of my classes, I was like, well, this is what I like to do, right? And what do they say? Oh, well, that's really rare. Most people don't get to do that. I've been told that a lot in my life
Oh
when I
my
actually look
gosh.
back. And I was
Yeah.
like, whatever. Didn't know, totally unconscious to my gifts and manifesting, you're 22 at that age. And it turns out that that's how my all of my career as a biologist was threatened and endangered species. And I
Hmm.
didn't pick jobs that way. It just literally worked that way every step. And so when I look back on it, I was like, wow, I did all that without even trying. Because we all try to manifest things, right? And when they don't go, we're like, I'm trying to manifest. Why? And it's like, I had a whole career doing what I wanted to do, just, traveling across the country and like, oh, I want to go here and I want to do that.
I love
So,
it. Like, it sounds like it was very synchronous, and we're gonna get into where you're at today and all that good stuff. But kind of looking back, it was like you were gaining a lot of the skills that you would need on a practical level. You were getting to explore your gifts in a more traditional setting, of course, but like it still ultimately was leading you where you wanted to go. And on that note of like people saying, oh, it's really rare, like most people don't get to do that. I heard that all the time about my writing. Like, most people don't make it as a writer. And now I know, like, oh, well, actually, only 1% of people will actually publish a book, like move forward and actually do it.
Yeah.
But now I know that it was entirely plausible for me to do. And it's just these stories that we hear of like, no, don't pursue your dream. No, that's not, even though you believe you have this calling, we know better.
Yeah.
And yet you've clearly always had this sort of soul level pull towards working with animals.
Yeah. And but we hear like, I mean, particularly, and it's changed some, but I picked a field that was mostly men. So that was a whole factor of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that I had some understanding of that because I come from a family of carpenters. So my mom is a carpenter, right? So, and a construction worker. So that was my world, as she worked in a male dominated field.
Mm-hmm.
So I was aware of it, but it wasn't something that I allowed to stop me as well, because that is one of the things that happen for women, is like men will tell them, or society will tell them, oh, that's a guy's job. You can't have that. And that never, because my pull was so strong, there was nothing else I could ever imagine doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it didn't matter like what came up. It's like it just kept moving in that direction.
Yeah.
And you do I mean, there's not a job I didn't have that I didn't have challenges that you have to work through. And it's still part of, I'm not going to lie, like my sense of humor, I think, allows me to be in a lot of situations and handle things. And that's different for a lot of people. Like I think that's kind of a fortunate thing. Not everybody has the particular skill set that allowed me to make it through some of those situations. But yeah, it was told every step of the way. And so anyone listening ever, please, 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 please don't listen to those voices. Please don't listen to the people. I get, you may love them. They may be family. They may be best friends. And please follow your dream, because it is possible. You have two people sitting here today showing you that whatever field you choose, I'm gonna cry, whatever dream you have, it's possible.
Yes. Yes. And the dreams coming true, what I found is that it doesn't always look the way we thought it was going to look.
Oh God, no.
But it's aligned, right? Like I look at right now, I'm pursuing my dreams fully. And it's not necessarily coming with, $1 million in my bank, because to have $1 million in my bank at this point in time, I would have to do some things that aren't in my integrity. I would have to work in a job or push a product or something that would not be 100% in alignment with me. But there's so much ease and joy in knowing that I'm just vibing. Like no one can make me do anything I don't want to do. I can live in my dreams. I can pursue them. I can work on clearing those voices. And so I so agree with you. Like, don't listen when people are like, you have to have the American dream. For me, that's what I grew up in because I live in the United States. But you have to have this version of the generation before you success. And there's this like one way to achieve it, and you follow this traditional path, and suddenly you'll be there. And that is not true at all in any way, shape, or form. And it doesn't serve people or animals or the planet when we push for constant productivity and constant money making and constant moving the bar higher and higher and higher in terms of how much we consume. So it's like we're coming back to these base relationships, our relationship to ourselves, to others, to our animals, to our planet. And I think that's so important.
Yes. I get I have all the feelings when you say that. I'm like, I have to wait for the energy to catch up, because I'm like, yes, absolutely. Everything she just said.
Well, hey, that's
so important.
That's part of, having these conversations is like, we're really feeling into the conversation that we're sharing, and like the themes that are essential for us to talk about. Because, I was thinking about this call today and us talking about animals, and I have very big feelings about animal rights. and treatment and whatnot. And it's not in my top three. Okay. So this is a lovely concept. I just want to say, because I know I've said it in other chats before, but you get three things, friends. You get three things that you get to try and influence in the world. Because if you try to influence them all, you're going to get burnt out, right? And animals, and like, so I'm a vegetarian. I'm very eco-conscious, but the eco-conscious is my focus, the saving the planet on an overarching scale. So I don't usually talk a lot about vegetarianism or veganism, and I don't really talk so much about how animals are treated in the world because it's not one of my top three. But I'm still so passionate about it, and more people need to be aware that their animals have thoughts, feelings, experiences, memories, pain, pleasure, like all of this. And as I was waking up this morning, I was reading my news feed, and I had a science article talking about how scientists are starting to recognize that animals have feelings and stuff. And I was like, well, perfect timing for our chat today. Yeah, like little bees playing with little balls because they're having fun, and octopus, doing puzzles, and like animals doing incredible things. And they've always been doing them for those of us who know how to, or have the gift of hearing it, which you and I both do. But to everybody else, like, let's start there. To everybody else who doesn't have that gift automatically, and that's okay. And you have your own gift package. We all do. But what is it like for somebody that has the gift of speaking with animals? Like, what's that like walking through life?
It's interesting because you you get to put your human ego to the side sometimes, because the truth is if, say, I'm out hiking, right? Like, that's different. Like, if I have clients, the animals always want to talk, or if I go to a friend's house, their dogs and cats, like, that's different. But we have this human belief that every single animal in the world wants to chat. And there is a very, like, in my experience, there's a difference between sort of our domesticated, our pets, that sort of thing, and the ones like out in the wild. And the ones out in the wild don't always want to chat. And so even for me, I'm all like, hey, buddy. And I'm like, oh, nothing today. I'm like, all right, But of course, do I not want to have a chat with every single bunny, lizard, bird that comes by me? Yeah, I do. And they're like, look, I got stuff to do today. Like, no one's
Right?
bringing me food.
I don't have the
Nobody's,
luxury of this
what I
chat.
mean? Right. Yeah. Like, I'm not laying in a sunbeam and someone bringing me treats. So I want to, because there's very much the Disney version of it, which, yes, like I would love that. And it doesn't always happen that way. So even those of you who have this gift, or you're trying to develop it, like, please understand, every animal doesn't want to have a chat. And the other part is, every animal doesn't show up how we think. So we think like, oh, this bunny is like so cute, and right, we have this idea. And I remember another animal communicator I knew a long time. She was like, I was out taking a walk and I saw this squirrel, and I started to chat with the squirrel, and he's big fluffy tail, right? And she was like, he's so cute. She goes, I swear to God, he was like smoking a cigar and had like a bowler. Like, he was so Italian, 1920s. And like, what do you want? Are you talking to me? Kind of. And it's so different because everyone thinks it's like the Disney version. And a lot of times it is. Like I said, our pets, like, that's a completely sort of different thing. But we have this idea that every animal out there doesn't have their own, it's just the one personality. And they don't. It's hysterical. And a lot of times, even with my clients, I remember I had a cat client a few weeks ago. His name is Casanova. And he was very much his name, right? Like, super cuddly, all of this. And then this other side, it was just, we were laughing so much because I'm like, he's like an Italian guy who is like, has this huge machismo ego. And like, I'm delivering these messages, and his mom is cracking up, and she's like, does he know when I tell him that he's the best kitty ever? And I was like, he does. I said, but he knows you fully don't believe it. And she's like, that's because I scoop his box. And so it was like, he was like, I need this 100% of like, I am the best thing ever. It was just, And so she was like, I've never seen that side of him. But then as I started to describe it, she was like, oh, he does this thing, that, and so a lot of times our animals have these whole other parts that we don't even know about. And I get to deliver, those kind of things and change the relationship and bring more to it. But it's hysterical when it happens. And then the pet parents, they get to fully see their animal also, right? Like they see the part of them, but when they get to know all of the parts of their pet, they're like, oh, I can see when he does this thing or they do that thing. And it changes. I even have this other one. Oh my gosh. They came to me as a dog client, and I literally can't even remember the cat's name because I call him the general, because he's a little black kitty, he's 14. And we're having this session. Sugar was the dog and she had cancer. So it's very heartfelt. I'm doing energy work. And this black kitty, he was like, keeps coming in and they asked, and I was like, he sees himself as the general, like, because it's the owner and her sister, so it's all a female house except for this little male kitty. And he's like, you guys are like his charges, like he's like commanded armies in the past. And so they started calling him the general, and they were like, you should see him, like he puffs up and he walks around, and she's like, it's a whole other side of him that is allowed to come out now. And it's just hysterical. Like I love it. And it just cracks me up because he's like, finally the recognition that I deserve. And I now walk around as who I truly am.
Oh my gosh. I love it so much. And so it's like, this gift is a really fun gift in a lot of ways to have. And, I get like crazy looks all the time when someone's doing something to a cat, and I'm like, they don't want you to do that. Like, they're very angry with you right now. And they're like, ha ha, human, like, you don't know what this animal wants. They're plucking them up and squeezing them. I'm like, they really don't want that.
Right.
So, what comes up for me that I just want to throw out there is gifts also come in a lot of different forms. So you get this like whole download about the persona, right, of this creature that you're connecting with, and you get very clear messages. And so for me, I pick up on energy and empathy, like the emotions, versus getting the messages as clearly. So it's just interesting to kind of look at even how we approach it differently. But like, you're really able to work with the animals as a client in that way because you can have this sort of reciprocal feedback, which is really interesting.
Yeah. I think it depends on like what we're talking about, your particular gifts, your clairs, right? So like my two strongest are claircognizant and clairsentient, which is the knowing and feeling. And then sight and sound are right behind. And so when I talk to animals, it looks exactly like you and I talking right now. And so I get all the feelings, which, was when I started doing it as a business, I judged a lot because I cry in the sessions. But what I actually started to see was like my human client gets to experience because they're not my emotions. And so when I get to have those go through and demonstrate them to my human, they get to receive those from their animal also. And so there's other people where you're like, you're the energy, you're the feeler, like that's your, because like I said, mine are like because my brain, you've met me, and your brain. So I know it's like my knowing and feel like they're just so even. And so for you, it comes in that way, which is super spectacular also, because you really get to, the people around you can feel that.
Yeah.
And that's such a gift to be, if they can receive it. Such a gift to be able to give.
That's what I love. I love to talk about people's gifts, because that's sort of what I do professionally, is help people understand their blueprint and what they came here to do, right? And when we find the gifts that are like our superpower gifts, like you being like, I'm taking this ability to communicate with animals to the next level. I'm going to actually go out there and improve the quality of lives of both humans and animals together. Like it's so magical, and like I love that. And there's so much misconception out there, again, about like, there's only one right way to do it. There's only one right way to have this gift or to experience something. And so I love, that you are able to discuss that with people too. that, this shows up in different ways. And if they can't communicate with their animals in the way that you can, that's okay. That's why people like you exist, because we all help kind of fill in those gaps of one another in community.
Absolutely. And one of the cool things that, because I do get a lot of end of life transitions and, animals come back to visit. And so I get to teach my pet parents, because that's my thing. I can tell what their Claire is, right? I know what their gifts are. So I'll be like, look, this is when she comes to visit, or even if they're still around, I was like, you're going to hear things. So when you start to do this, this, and this, that's her. When you start to feel this, this, and this, that's him. And so I get to mentor them in these sessions as well, so that they, on their everyday life, they're having a different experience. Like, oh, I'm not, because most of the time we're walking around going, am I crazy? Like, they're not talking to me. Am I crazy? Like, we have that little voice that's just about anything, but in particular to this, because this is, even among psychics, there's times like, oh, that's too weird. Like, you can talk to dead people and that's fine, but you talk to animals,
well,
like, no, that's too weird.
Humankind wanting to separate animals as lesser beings versus equals with a different form of communication.
It's so true. And I want to tell people, like, it can be really hard to talk to your own animals, even for me, because the thing is, in any kind of intuitive work I do, once I'm attached or I have any emotional investment, things get fuzzy. So that's why my friends are not my clients, because I'm attached to the outcome of, like, and even my own, right? We got Romeo, my new little lunatic. He talked to me more psychically before he showed up since he's got here. More in the 2 months of him not being here than he has in the 6 months I was like, hey, can you? And he's like, nah. Pip would never talk to me either. So don't get discouraged if you can't. Like, sometimes I happen to have a interest in bratty animals, so those are the animals that I get. So this is the dynamic that we have. Not everybody gets that. So but just know, if they're like, particularly in any time of emotional challenge or medical, like, that's why I exist. Because even for me, I had to try and find someone when Pip was sick and transitioning, and even then I was like, how do people do this without someone like me? And so please don't beat yourself up if you're like, I can't. It can be really challenging to talk to our own animals, and it can be learned.
And thank you for speaking to that, because that was something that I was kind of thinking in the back of my mind. Like, we have a lot of animals in our polyam family, right? We have 2 households, so we have 2 households of pets too. And the cats that I live with are completely and utterly different from the cats that I used to live with, because we had this fun retransfiguration of living situation. And my boys and my little adoptee girl at the other house are the loveliest cats you've ever met. They want to snuggle, they want to talk, they want to be around you all the time, or they want to hold space with you. And the cats here are like, one of them is the most skittish in the world. And she just, every noise, she's got to run. She was a stray that we adopted about 1.5 years ago. And the other, I have gotten distinct. Like, her persona is this bog witch character who's very much like, I might eat your eyeballs if you're not paying close enough attention. And she's one of those cats that, like, does the silver, there's the silver medallion in the bowl, and now I have to scream, and if you don't get to it right away, I start knocking things off shelves. Like, it's a 180 from my little snuggle bugs. And there are days where I'm like, I wish I could communicate with you at the same level that I had with, my other cats that I lived with for a while. And so, yes, like, we might need to do some work with the ones here, because they're just off the chain.
Well, and they're cats.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. There's some where you're just like, look, that's just a cat thing. Like, there's not, like, it's just, I'm not saying that's what with yours, but, like, it's different than with dogs, right? Like, sometimes you're like, there's no explanation. You go, that's just a cat.
A lot of it's just a cat. And I want the solution. I want the behaviors to stop. And
absolutely,
that's just who they are in many ways. I do hope that Miss Baby, the really skittish one, somewhere several years down the road, will finally breathe, because she has 2 modes, which is panic Or I would like to snuggle near you. And I'm like, the
Yeah.
snuggle near you is progress, but we want to be able to, love her more. And I want to be able to
Yeah.
put a harness on her because her greatest dream is to go outside. And I try to send her
Yeah.
little images. I'm like putting the harness on and then taking her outside. I'm sending it to her over and over. I'm like, you can let me put the harness on. No, run.
That's perfect. But you're doing the work. You know what I mean? Whether or not she ever gets there, you're in this process with her, and you're meeting her where she's at, which is like that's the biggest thing is just allowing them to be where they are. And there was something I was going to say about her. Now I can't remember what it was.
You might
But
come back.
I love that you're doing that. You're showing her like these are the possibilities. Like this is what we can do. And you're right, like the snuggle near you. I used to have a cat. His name was PJ, little stinker. I brought him all the way home from Michigan. I'm in Arizona. Like I was home visiting my family. He was a stray that was hanging around the house. We were like, okay, we'll take him home. Most expensive free kitty that's ever existed. And you got to pay to put him on the plane, and you got to have the house certificate. Super snuggly. We get him here, and he's like, "Nah, I'm good.
Yup.
You're not going to touch me." Not in any aggressive way, but he was like, "I don't want to be picked up." But what he would do is he would always come, like, say we were sitting in the living room, he would come and he'd put his back feet on your foot, and he was so happy and thoroughly content just to do that.
That makes me think of my one boy Bane. He loves to have the paw. He just reaches out. He'll lay on
Yeah,
you.
he's just
He's a snuggle bug. But yeah, Miss Baby, before she got moved in, it was getting cold, and she was coming up on the porch. So we'd go out on the porch, and she'd sit in our laps, and she'd be so lovely, and we'd give her food, and then she'd sleep in the little crate we made outside for her. And then it was gonna frost. It was like the first frost of the year, pretty much, and we were like, we don't want her outside overnight, but we try to bring her in at
yeah.
at the other house and fights. So had to put her back out. And then Justin, who I live with now, was like, I'm coming to get her. It's gonna get cold tonight. And he's like the cat. If you imagine a cat man, he's the cat man. Like he loves cats through and through, and he just wants to save them all. So of course he brings her home. Has never once been in a lap since, has never, no snuggles for her, complete tude. And I'm just like, okay, I see that you just wanted a home and you got what you needed, and now you're showing your true colors, and I don't blame you because it was getting cold.
Yep. It's a whole little bait and switch kind of thing. And you're like, and then we get to, practice like, okay, well, this is who they are. And this is,
the other, on that note, like you think you know a cat when you go into the shelter or a dog when you go into the shelter, and they do change. The boys that my wife and I adopted 5 years ago now, everyone wanted the deaf cat. Everyone wanted him because he was cute, had the big eyes, and he seemed dopey and innocent. And his brother, the big boy who likes to put the paw, Bane, he was like aloof and kind of separated until someone would bully his brother, and then he'd show up to defend, and he'd get in trouble and he'd get put on lockdown. Well, we got them home, and Bane's like the total snuggle bug, never violent, like wouldn't hurt a fly unless he gets outside and he goes feral. But Quasi, the deaf one, is a little like mastermind. He's absolutely terrible. He does bad stuff all the time, and he's always like working on the others to get them to do naughty things too. And I'm like, and everybody wanted you because they thought you just had not a single brain cell in there, that you were just gonna lick them all day because of your anxiety. Like, yes. So we put so many expectations on our animals as humans.
Yeah. That is one of my purposes in this life, is to educate people on the expectations and the projections that we put on animals. And, to whatever scale that looks like right now, one-on-one with clients, or when I do talks like this. And, but it's true. We very much, and that's different than anthropomorphizing. Like it's a different thing. And, it's yeah, there's so many stories and so many things. I'm like, so many examples I could give. We don't have the time, but yes, it's one of the things that is my passion in this life. And for the cat, you're like, all I can keep seeing, I gotta say, because it won't get out of my brain, is him every night going, what are we gonna do tonight, Brain? The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Take over the world.
Literally, that is that cat. Oh man. And he looks so innocent and angelic, and you would never guess. Yep, that's who he really is. And yeah, like letting our pets be who they really are, and letting animals in the wild be who they really are. Like I want more animal rights in the world. Like they're living, breathing beings, feelings, and
yep. And it's it starts with conversations like this. It starts with, like you're saying, you have a cat that's skittish. There are so many people that I meet where they're like, well, I want my cat to be able to come out when people are over. And I'm like, why? Because here's the thing. There are, as much as there's introverted people, there's introverted animals. There's introverted dogs, there's introverted cats. And I'm like, same people that would do the same thing to a child.
Oh, bingo.
And I was an introverted kid, and it was always like, we've got to go to I'm one of the oldest grandchildren in my family. So I had cousins born all the time, right? So it was like, we had to go see the baby. I don't want to see no baby. I was not that. I was like, can I just go play with the dog?
I'm going to go outside and sit with the squirrels.
And they were like, you need to hold the baby. And so I have so many pictures like this, holding a baby of me like through and I just want to play with the dog. But society is like, we don't honor or even understand. Like no one does any of this, maliciously in that. It's just a lack of awareness and understanding of like, oh no, my kid's just an introvert. She doesn't want to go do that. She wants to go play with the dog. Let her go play with the dog. But we do the same thing with animals. And it's like, imagine, say you have a dog who's a rescue who was in an abuse situation, and now they're in your home, and you're like, oh, I want to he needs to socialize and he needs to go. And it's like, would you do the same thing to a 5-year-old child?
Some people would, because they think that's the way through.
Yes.
And that's,
yeah. And it's, I know that's a whole other talk we can have.
Like that's more what I try to do, or what I'm here to do, is help people understand their impact on everything around them. Whether, and again, that's why I love connecting with experts like you, because you're an expert on animals and communicating with animals and their rights and their autonomy, their personality. I have another person that I do repeat calls like this, who's the vegan. Like she has studied everything about why, it's better for people to make that choice more often than they might be currently, if not all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So I love finding people with their expertise. But ultimately, like I'm trying to reduce our negative impact on one another. And that means animals, kids, the planet itself, each other, right? And everything stems back to trauma. That's I spent many years as a therapist, and everything that I was also a public school teacher. Everything that went wrong in public school classrooms was trauma responses from the kids, because their home environment was traumatic, right? When you see animals freaking out, they're having a trauma response and they're trying to defend themselves, right? When adults are bossing kids and animals around, or, saying this is how it's got to be done, usually from their own trauma of having that done to them when they were a child, right? It all stems back, and to reduce the negative impact we have on one another is like my greatest purpose. So I love that you have this purpose of reducing the negative impact that can occur between people and their animal companions, because that's such an important part of that bigger, the big image of everyone understanding their impact.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. And one of the things I love too, doing this work, and same with the work that you do, is because I get, I don't get a lot of children involved when it's usually the parents and that sort of thing. But it's like, if I can change how the parents see this and change the relationship, they now then will teach their children. So it's very much the things that you and I do in this world, our hope is that it has the domino effect.
Yeah.
And because that's if I teach someone like, oh, this is that, and they go, oh, I'm going to go talk to my child now and be like, this is why our dog does this. This is what we're going to do to help her. This is, like that. because the truth is like one thing can change
Absolutely.
everything. Like, and I don't like, I'm going to say simple, not small. And simple isn't even, because it's like, it could be just this one little thing. It doesn't have to be this massive, like, oh, we did a whole new training or whatever. And it's like, just that one little instant can change
A
everything
perspective.
in any part of your life.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
like when clients come to you and you're working with them now, so you know you're not so much in the traditional fields anymore. You're paving your own way, and that's how I met you, was through our paving our own way. What does the average session look like that you do with a client now? I'm just super curious.
So I get all kinds of things. So I get medical challenges, because I'm also medical intuitive with the animals. Like I can, energy work and all that kind of stuff. So I get a lot of, we've received a diagnosis. We don't know if our animal wants to do the treatment. We don't know how far we have, and it doesn't. And a lot of times it can be medical things that can be fixed. So like I had one client, he had 3 cats. We did them, and he was like, I have this cat. One of them, he was losing weight, wasn't grooming. And I said, and this is what I love, is that because of my science background, because of the wildlife biology and the animal behavior and the physiology, I'm like, this is what's happening in their body along with the psychic part. And so I look and I said, well, according to the symptoms, it's either diabetes or thyroid. And what I'm seeing in their body also. So went to the vet, did the tests, thyroid, much easy. It's easy to treat in cats. Cat started to put weight back on. So it's those kind of things. I had another one. It was a dog, had congestive heart failure. It was getting better. It was getting worse. And when I looked, I was like, it's the medicine. I said, he has a reverse reaction to this medicine. I said, go to the vet, have him switch the medicine, because there's multiple. Dog started doing better. So there's medical things like that. Definitely end of life transitions, which are so very dear to my heart. Like we want, what do they want? When is the time? There's so much that can change in those moments. It's like, that's one of my things. It's like, come see me. I get it's weird. I get, you've already spent all this money at the vet. I'm cheaper than the vet. And your last weeks, months can look completely different because you're not stressed. You're not worried. You're not having guilt or shame if you didn't have the money, because that's a huge thing with a lot of it. Like your animal didn't want the treatment. So, and so those last few moments you have are happy and peace filled and bittersweet. Absolutely. But that whole part gets removed. We do energy work. We have sessions where pet parents are like, I just want to know more about what they're doing and this kind of stuff. And are they happy? And do they know I love them? And so I love those kind of things. Training, right? If you're like, we're doing this, I don't know if it's a match. I have one lady, she has an Australian Shepherd, and she was like, I did all this training with him, because Australian Shepherds, like they're working dogs. They're not like lay around on the couch kind of dogs. And so, we had a chat, and I was like, this is the training he'd like to do. These other 2, not so much. He's also a very introverted Australian Shepherd, and she accepts him just as he is. And so it's this whole range of kind of things that it shows up in, or just things like I have one client, she has a kitty, and she was going to be traveling a lot. And she's like, I'm worried that when I leave him with my family member, like you see, and I was like, no, he's fine. Because he gets to hang out with her dad. It was like, he totally is like, we're going to bro out. Like you go, I'm going to hang with him. We're going to watch TV. We're just going to chill. Like he's so happy. So now she gets to go travel knowing that he's perfectly happy and healthy when he gets to go visit. So it's just so much of your life can be different. The stress and this worry and the doubt and the what ifs can really be released.
Oh, I got a little like teary-eyed with you talking about that. I'm like over here blinking, because just like there's so much that we as a species, as a human species, have discounted in our abilities, right? As there's been this modern push towards conformity and productivity, and the beauty that people are missing out in their lives when they are missing opportunities like this, right? Because either they've been told they're crazy for having a gift and feeling like they know what they're seeing, or never knowing that it's an option, that people have these different gifts, and that it's okay if I don't have it. I can go find someone who who does, right? And you're totally right. What you said earlier just came back in about like people are much more accepting of, I want to go talk to, my dead dad or, great grandma and the ancestry line. It's like, okay, so slowly more and more societies coming online with what gifts exist out there. And that's something that I really, in the Inner Tapestry talk series I do with Red Moon Eagle, we talk about these different aspects of blueprint gifts. And I'm gonna see if she wants to do one on Animal Speak too, because it's like more people need to know it's a possibility and that you're not crazy if you feel like you pick up on stuff, because we all pick up on something, just different aspects. Again, we're a collective for a reason. Speaking of collective,
I love that.
You have an upcoming collaborative book coming out that's all about this topic in particular, right?
Yes. So I'm super excited. It's the third book I've done, and this one's on animals that I got to be a part of. It's called Pause and Purpose. So pause as in, PAWS. It launches on May 7th on Amazon. So please look out for it. It's all stories. They're not all animal communication stories. They're all just which it was actually my idea. I pitched the publishers and I was like, hey, it was funny because I've been meaning to send them an email for like 3 days, and it's As You was publishing. They're a great company, and I know both of them. And I was like, I need to send an email because I kept having this idea about an animal book. And then they posted in the Facebook group like polls for what are the next books we should do. And I was like, this, and they picked it. I didn't know they were going to pick it for the first one of this year because we were still launching the second one I had just done. I was like, now I got to write another one in a very short period of time, because the universe does that. They're like, oh, we're just going to pile it all up. And so it's all stories of animals that have either changed your life, had an impact, transformed, something like that. So it's all these heartfelt animal stories. Pause and Purpose. All of the proceeds go to charity. So like I said, it'll be on Amazon on May 7th, they've said. So please keep an eye open for that.
Put the link for it on this video when it comes out, but absolutely I will be getting my copy. And I love the title when you're doing the pause. I don't know if I'm the only person that does this, but like I take a picture of my pet's little exposed beans whenever I can. Whenever I see that little paw, I'm like, I have to take a picture of this. I probably have 1,000 pet paw pictures.
I have so many of Romeo's little face because he only has 2 speeds, like chaos and sleeping. And so when I was like, look at your cute little face. Look at it. It's like, and people are like, I was like, they do not look the same. These are different. Like,
oh my gosh, that's a whole other topic we could get into someday. It's the intersection between animals and body of 9, because I've discovered that the body types seem to at least apply to cats. Fence still out on dogs, but I wonder if you have a natural number 6 cat on your hand over there. That's what that sounds like.
I don't know. I've been meaning to talk to you because, like, I don't know where you're like, I'm a 9. I don't know this particular number system. I don't know anything about it. And I'm like, I want to keep asking Safrianna, like, what is that? Where do I Google it? I want to find, like, I know my human design. I know my basic astrology because I suck at astrology. But I was like, I want to know what my number is. So
I do have a masterclass that's out there. I also, livinglunas.com/body of 9 has the basics, and we're always doing events for it. But yeah, I really feel like if we can get the animal layer of it, then humans are going to be more interested in it too, because I've discovered that the descriptions and sort of energies of natural number toddlers also matches the cats. So the really moody cat, the witch cat, she's a natural number 8. So she's like, these are my boundaries and do not cross them, but I'll cross yours. And Miss Baby is a 7, and she just sees the possibility of her imminent death all the time. And so she's just scared and paranoid all the time. And you can see her little unicorn horn, like she drives from her forehead, which is where 7 is. And it's so funny because all of the behaviors are identical between the 2 natural number 7 cats we have across households. Same body poses,
Well, see, now I want to know mine and Romeo's. I'm like, I want to go. What do I Google?
I wish it was an easy thing to Google, because the problem is it's ancient knowledge that's been barely reignited. It's like from ancient Egyptian times, and the Enneagram tried to take it and turn it into a personality test, which didn't quite work. Like, Enneagram's great for some people, but it doesn't get to your body. This gets to your body, which unfortunately means you need a professional to look at your body.
Right.
And not many of us are trained on how to do that yet. But the cats are something, I think I'm a pioneer on that. So we'll keep talking.
Yeah. I looked up, I'm a manifesting generator. I looked up Romeo. He's a generator.
Shocking, it sounds like, yeah.
Yeah. So, because I was like, oh, I wonder what he is. And apparently there's I don't know, I heard about it, and they were like, there's a separate website or category or something, like someone's created it all for dogs, but they've only got that far. They haven't done the other animals or anything like that. So I was like, whatever. I know, when he was born.
What a time to be alive, with all of these beautiful systems of understanding and gift communication and just all of it. I'm so honored to know you and to be in your space. So thank you so much, Alicia, for
oh my gosh, you're gonna make me cry, girl.
for being on today and having this open conversation. And I'd love to have another one in the future. So by all means.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, friends, if you have questions about animals, if you want to work with an animal intuitive, Alicia's got your back. Like, reach out. If you have another topic you'd like to see covered in a soul connection call, let me know. And if there's something you'd like to see the two of us talk about in the future, let us know that as well. All of the other details are in the description, and I can't wait to be back and having our chat in the future.